I would say that there is room for you. Like, if it really is something you love, there is room. You can insist that there be room for you.
Hi, everyone. It's the Kara Goldin Show, and I'm so excited for my next guest, and kind of an unusual guest for us to have, but I was so excited when Finnerty, her name is Finnerty Steeves, very, very excited when she was introduced to me by a mutual friend, and basically is this awesome, awesome actress who I've admired for over the years. And we'll talk about sort of her next step that she recently took. It has a brand new movie that is so, so good that really took the next step from being an actress to, well, I'll let Finnerty talk a little bit more about that. But welcome, Finnerty. And actually, let me back up a little bit. Where I had first seen you, your first role, or at least the first role that I had seen you was as Denise in The Sopranos, and absolutely loved you in that. And then, of course, there was Orange is the New Black, which was one of my favorites. And I don't know if anyone has ever said this to you, by the way, but the Orange is the New Black, I used to watch the show when I was little with my older sister called Cell Block H that was out of Australia. Have you ever heard about this?
Yes. Yeah, I watched. Oh, no. Not that. I was thinking of Wentworth also. I watched. I haven't seen Cell Block H.
This is totally aging myself, but this is the 1970s, and it was the scariest, but it was about a female prison. And I have to believe that there was something there about when people were looking at Cell Block H, there was very different, but a lot of similarities. But it was one of my favorite shows to sort of sneak late at night. But anyway, that I've always wondered about that. So, okay, I'm going to stop talking and we're going to just dig right in, but welcome, Finnerty.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one thing that I like to talk about on the show is just inspiring individuals about different types of careers and just different industries and how maybe they're similar to the industry that the listener is in. Maybe they're a little bit different, but talk to me a little bit about kind of how did you get started?
Well, I was a really shy kid, and I'm still pretty shy, actually. But my mom talked me into taking a speech and drama class in junior high just to sort of get over any kind of like standing in front of a classroom or anything. I was just so nervous, and I started to sort of fall in love with it, even though I was still painfully shy. So I took classes in all the way through high school and did school plays and stuff. And I remember my high school guidance counselor saying, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be an actress. And he said, well, you can't, what's your backup plan then? You can't just do that. And I without even really, I was not even talented. I think I'd been in 2 school plays or whatever, but I was like, I will never make it if I have a backup plan. And he was like, okay. So I just knew that about myself, that I just thought, if I don't want any distractions, I'm just going to put my head down and go. So I studied acting in college and went to theater training school. I went to American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco to get my master's, and I've just been plugging along forever as an actor. I love it. I love being an actor. I've had a lot of rejection, but I just have never. I've had just the right amount of yeses, to continue going. When I finished graduate school, I was for sure going to move to Southern California. I lived on a sailboat actually in graduate school in San Francisco, because we were there during the peak of the .com. It was just crazy expensive. So I lived on a 32-foot sailboat, which was a real fun. Great adventure. I was in school 6 days a week, and so I didn't care really where I laid my head, and it was an exciting time. And then after graduate,
were these in San Francisco? Sorry, or in Sausalito?
It was actually in Alameda, which is a little island, sort of like between Oakland. Yeah. we
So fun.
yeah, my ex and I bought a boat and lived on the sailboat. It was really fun. Um, and then so I was the only one of my classmates that was definitely going to go to LA after school. And then I had sort of, we did our little showcase, and the agents in New York were more interested. And I fell in love with New York City, and I was like, I felt like I was supposed to be here. And I just love it. I love New York City. It's such a crazy, amazing place, but it just felt like the right home for me. And it felt like, when I was younger anyway, it felt like there was a distinction between sort of like the really attractive classmates went to LA and the more character actors went to New York. And that's just a generalization, but that's sort of how it felt when we were younger, that we needed to kind of do that. But it doesn't feel that way to me now anyway. But I feel like I've been able to be an actor here, with theater and with off-Broadway. And then when I did a lot of regional theater, so I would pick up and move to Minneapolis or, a different town for 3 months to do a play, or Arizona, or, it was a great time. I don't travel as much anymore because I have a baby. I have a 7-year-old, so it's hard to pick up your life for 4 months when you have a baby.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do most actors that you ran into have masters, or do they, I mean, what's sort of the kind of the training that most actors and actresses have?
It's definitely not necessary. It's not necessary. It really kind of depends. For theater, though, I found I moved right after undergrad. I did a really great undergrad program at Cal State Fullerton. I was here for just a short amount of time. And there were just so many fish in the sea that I felt like without that degree, it wasn't really about so much the training, even though it was more about how it could open some doors for you. So and you have to weigh that, right? Because the most master programs are just so expensive that you have to sort of figure out, like, does this make sense? And I kind of felt like, for me, my ingenue clock was running out, and I did that really well. I was able to be a working actor before graduate school. I sort of took a big break between the two, and I lived in South Florida, and I was doing a lot of theater in that area, and making a living just being an act. Well, I shouldn't say that. I did wait tables too. What am I saying? I did wait tables, but I was able to be a working actor down there, which was wonderful. But I did feel like the ingenue clock was running, and I was like, I don't know that I've always felt like I'm a lucky person, or that, I'm sort of a scared person in general, but I think the flip side of that scared coin for me is like, a scared person sometimes feels like bad things can happen, but also scared people can, I think, sometimes feel like really great things could happen too. And I always felt like I would run up against some cool opportunities, and I just wanted to make sure that I was prepared so that I could really step into it if I did get lucky. So I just never gave up, really. Like I said, I think I'm more determined than talented. I'm super stubborn, and I've just been like, I think if I can just stick my course of being like, I am an actor, here's who I am, and I know this about me, and I'm ready to go and trained and ready to go, that like eventually the business will find me and hit me. If I keep running around going like, who am I and what do I stand for? And maybe I should be that like there's a possibility we'll never meet up. But I was like, I'll just be me and be ready. And then maybe an opportunity will hit me, So,
I love that. That's so great. One thing that I talk about a lot and becoming an entrepreneur is that every entrepreneur I've ever met has fears. And it sounds like every actor has fears as well. But the more fears you break through and you look back on, maybe it was that part that you didn't think you were going to get it. Maybe you weren't even supposed to show up one day for a certain part, and then you ended up getting it, and it ended up working out a lot better. So there's always this fear that goes along with it, and maybe people that you think are better than you that show up in the room, right? I'm sure you had a lot of that, or having more experience, but you just never really know until you try. And so that's what I loved about your story, and I'm glad you hit on this, because there's so many similarities, no matter what industry you're in, how that it really intersects in so many ways. How people feel. There's, this little thing inside your head that is saying, be scared. But the more of those you kind of move through, the easier it gets and the more resilience you have.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And so you get to New York City, you're doing theater at this point, and when did, I guess The Sopranos was that the first big one that you that people would recall, or
Yeah,
what
that
would
was
you say to
one of the
that?
first jobs out of graduate school. And I was such a fan of the show that, getting that part, it was just, it was a pretty small, it was a small little part. I was just, a
But you
soccer
were
mom,
terrific.
thank you. But it was, I think for me, it felt like, I just realized, I don't know that I totally answered your question earlier about graduate school, because just circling back to that briefly, it just made me think of that I felt like without that training and being presented to agents in a way, it's their safe way too of knowing, like, I can send this person in and they just know that you have the reputation of the school behind you, and that you have that. So it's not, it's just a little bit easier. So it definitely doesn't buy you an agent at all, but it does put a little bit of an asterisk next to you to just sort of skip the line a little bit, if that makes sense. So I was able to get a really great agent out of school, and that helped. And so and this was one of my first roles. And I was invited to the table read, and that was one of the most exciting days of my life. I was sort of like, I could be done now, because we had to go around the room and introduce ourselves with the entire cast. And I still get, like, that was years and years ago, and I still get all nervous just thinking about it, because I was like, this is surreal. And, there they all were. And it was an incredible experience.
And they were inviting you in. Who was the person that you remember most?
I think, seeing Gandolfini and Edie Falco sitting at the other end of the table, read their scene together. It was like, it was incredible. And I'm blanking on his name. He's so amazing. And I'm blanking on his name, but he was so cute, because I felt like he knew, he was looking at me like, huh? Like, pretty great, right? Like, everyone else was like, they'd been doing it, it was like season 5, I think. So, yeah. But he was so cute, right? It's Tony's sister's husband. I'm blanking on his real name. Anyway, he was just so adorable, and he just kept looking at me like, I know, this is pretty cool. And so I do remember that energy. He was lovely. And just, like I said, seeing James Gandolfini and Edie, like, read their scene across the table was just like incredible.
What a terrific. Isn't The Sopranos coming back? Wasn't there some talk about that?
I hear, yes, I think it's like a prequel or something, right? I don't know any of the details, but I think they're doing, Tony as a young man, I think, yeah.
Yeah, it would be very, very cool to see that. So then Orange is the New Black. Talk to me about that. How did that come about?
That was, I am, like, again, similar to, I was such a huge fan of the show, and I had actually auditioned a few times. One of the things you sort of learn as an actor is, like, your type, right? And so I would sometimes get bored of my type. It helped me make, I made my living basically doing commercials, because I look like sort of, the nice, real-looking mom. Like, I look like the mom that's sort of, like, getting stains out of a boy's clothes or something, like, so I just made a living sort of doing that. And I would get, 4 of those a year, and that would pay for my theater habit, and I could do off-Broadway, and, that does not pay very well, but, like, I could do that. And then you have these great TV and film things that come along. But usually I would be sort of like the day player, or I'd come in for a couple of days and be the, earnest lab tech that's, pulls the guy over and tells him the truth. And, but in the theater, I would have much more opportunities to play really great roles. But a lot of times for TV and film, it's sort of like, you're the day player, you're believable, you do your thing, you get the ball over the plate for the fancy people to hit the ball, So I went in for a couple of really great smaller roles for Orange, had a scheduling issue with one of them, thank God, and couldn't do it. And then, a year and a half later, they called me in for this part for Beth Hoefler. And I have never wanted a part more in my life. I was like, this is incredible. And there were 3 scenes in that first episode, and they purposely did not give me the scene, or they cut it early where we find out what her crime was. And but I just had this feeling. I was like, I think she is very complicated, and I think I have a feeling her crime was really bad, and that she seems sort of one thing and is actually a lot of layers. And so at the audition, I remember they specifically said, no hair, no makeup, no, don't do your hair. And I remember my husband isn't in the business, but I turned to my husband. I was heading out that day and I was like, I am so excited. I said, this is what dudes must feel like when they go to an audition, because it really is about the part, and it's about acting, and it's not about whether did I make the right decision to put my hair on this side, or, it just seems like it's a lot of times for women in the business, it does feel like it comes down to that so often. And with this show, I felt like it didn't. And there I was in my white t-shirt and my, blue pants. And I was like, I think I'm going to walk there and even be a little sweaty, So I walked to the audition, and I was so excited to go in the room, and it went really, really well. And afterwards, they told me what the crime was. Jen Houston, who's an incredible casting director, she's like, do you want to know what the crime is? And I said, yeah. And she told me, and I was like, oh God, oh my God. And I just prayed for that part, because I was like, please, I don't even think I need a role after. It was just such an incredible experience. And I thought, I don't know that I need to act anymore. It was that, because I feel like in our business, you either have a great role, great people, or a great film or like the thing itself is fancy, and for this, it was like a great role with amazing people and one of the best shows. It was just it was incredible. It was an incredible experience.
It was so great. And was it all filmed in New York?
Yep. It was all, we had a lot of my stuff, because I was in maximum security. And that was most of it was filmed in Queens. And then, there's two different locations. Like we had my character, because people didn't really like her. I was not in as many, like it had to be sort of group scenes. And so some of the like group therapy scenes and all that were at a women's prison in Forest Hills, like a not a full prison, but like a detention center kind of a thing.
Interesting. Did you have to do a lot of, or did you get to do a lot of research and actually go into women's prisons?
I didn't get to do that. I wonder if the girls did originally, like the original cast. I wonder if they did. What was sort of exciting though is because it was maximum security. Stepping into that with these women who had been doing the show for 5 years, it was kind of fun because a lot of them didn't know the new set. So even they were kind of like, wait, where are we? Where's the, and it was kind of fun because but I knew that I had been there for 16 years. So my character had to sort of know it pretty well. But I did do a lot of research more about postpartum psychosis and stuff like that. That was sort of more like what I was really fascinated with. And I'm sure, like, God forbid, if anybody ever found my computer, the stuff that you sort of Google as an actor, sometimes I'm like, oh God, I hope so no one ever looks through my Google search or whatever. Cause you look up the strangest things as an actor that I'm like, but yeah, it's a heartbreaking crime. And I just, I learned a lot about, as a mom, I knew about postpartum depression and stuff, but I never really knew that much about postpartum psychosis, and it should be talked about so much more. It's such a, and it's not even, we never actually learned that Beth had this, but I just sort of made that decision that was, you're given the pieces, the actors are given the pieces to the puzzle a lot of times just a little bit before the audience, so a lot of times you don't know what your arc is, and they do that on purpose so that it's super exciting to everybody and that it's not predictable. So there were a few times that I was like, wait, what did I do? Oh my God. Okay. That's all right. That's great. That's fun to play.
I can't imagine that these parts don't change you. I mean, you talk about the Google searches, but they're pretty, there's a lot, right? Between The Sopranos, I bet they really do, change you in many ways. Is it hard to disconnect, especially to go home at night and start to live a normal life? And I bet that would be really tough.
It does. It definitely does change you. I will say, for me, doing a play, I think it's a little harder because you have to really Well, I guess it's the same, really. I don't know, but like it's when you're doing a play, you're really in it for those months, and it's like, but it is pretty easy, especially if you get to where you can that you separate. You're not that but it definitely does affect you if you're doing a really silly rompy 60s comedy and you're being silly with you're getting paid to do this fun play up in the Berkshires with your friends. I mean, it's like it's super fun, right? But if you're doing a play that is really heavy, it definitely does weigh on you. You're sort of but yeah, you do learn how to sort of separate it once you get home, and and let it go. You have to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So interesting. And then in 2015, you received the Elliot Norton Award. Congratulations for your performance as Miss Calvin in The Shape She Makes, which was also an incredible performance. Why do you think that that was kind of highlighted as, award winning? I mean, what do you think it was about that in particular?
That was a play. It was one of the best productions I'd ever been a part of. It was so special. Jonathan Bernstein and Susan Meisner. It was their baby that they created, and they're two of the most incredible artists that I know. And they created this piece, and I think if I just read the play itself, there's a lot of movement in it, and usually I don't really like things that are sort of hooey and like pretentious, and so I think if I just sort of seen it on the page, I would have been like, oh, I don't know if this is really me. It was one of the most moving pieces I'd ever been a part of. It was about a woman, and they actually had to build a suit for me because she was somebody who abused, food, and normally they were planning on using, a larger actress, but they had all of these things that they had in their mind that they wanted to do with her physically by so much movement that they ended up having to hire a sort of a lighter body in a suit to be able to do a lot of the things that they wanted to do physically. It was just it was such an incredible play that literally at the end, it was a really intimate space. There was audience on three sides. We did it at ART in Boston, in Cambridge actually, and I had to hold for sobs at the end because people were that visibly
emotional,
and it took place. He jumps around in time. It's a nonlinear piece, and the audience comes in, and we have to put these name tags on that we're seeing this. So there's some sort of speech that's happening, and you're not really sure what's happening. And my character, who is like over 300 pounds, walks in late. The play starts, and I purposely walk in late. And because of because of the piece, the woman giving the speech at the beginning sort of holds and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, come on in." So you feel all of these eyeballs on me coming in. And then once the play starts, my character gets up from the play, and you see people go like, "Wait, what? She's in this play, and this story is about her?" Like, we just had our own opinion about her coming in late, and now we are going to have a whole hour and a half with this woman, and she is telling the story. And it was just really, really powerful. And they just did such an incredible job. I sort of got credit for it, because I played this role. But it was just a beautiful play. And there was a lot of talk of us doing it again. And but it just never sort of got the wind that it needed. But yeah, I think the play itself won awards too. But it was such an honor. It was such a beautiful, beautiful play.
That's so terrific. So years of being an actress, you decide to take the leap, scare yourself a little bit, and go off and write your own movie. How did that come about?
Oh gosh. Well, I've always wanted to write. I've been obsessed with writing. When I go for a little jog or whatever, my brain is just full of all these ideas, but I was afraid to do it. I didn't know. I just had such respect for writers, and I'm just kind of I don't know, I just felt like I was afraid to be judged in that way. It felt even more intimate than acting to me. And I felt like I didn't know the rules, and I didn't, and I wasn't totally sure that I had a story to tell. And then my seemingly perfect 15-year marriage fell apart, and I was like, oh, this this might be worth
This is what
exploring.
happens. So
Yeah.
the movie, by the way, is called Before, During, and After, and it is so good on so many levels. It's on, is it on Netflix?
It's
What
on
is the
every platform that you normally rent or buy movies. So currently it's in, they call it like a TVOD window, meaning like transactional video
Yep.
on demand. So it's sort of like on everything, like iTunes, Amazon,
So good.
yeah, Fandango, all those. Yeah. They're going to be
Yeah,
announcing soon some sort of SVOD release, some sort of subscription later, but I don't know what that is yet. But yeah, it's so
it is
nice.
so
It's so
good.
exciting to have it out in the world for people to see.
So it came really from your own story. And so how long did it take you to write this?
It took it took a couple of years to write it. I was pregnant with my daughter, and I suddenly felt like, oh, I need to do this now. Like I need to get this done. And actually, I think it was the first year that that Meryl Streep was doing that, for screenwriters over 40, and I just turned 40, and I was like, whatever their deadline was, it gave me a specific deadline. So I was like, if nothing else, I like, because at first I thought I would never really share it with anybody, but it was like to have that deadline so I could say I had a completed screenplay. So I finished it, and then I started sharing it with people, and they were like, you have to make this, maybe you should sell it. So I was thinking about selling it, and then I was like, why am I selling it? I'm an actor. That's what I do. Why wouldn't I try to do this myself? And then sort of naively said, I'm going to make this, without knowing what that meant at all. Thank God I did not know what that meant, because I would never, it's the most intense thing I've ever done in my life. But I set out to do it. I was like, kids do this. Kids make movies. Like, people say they're going to do things, and they do it. So, that's what I've been doing the last 5-6 years now. It's just been making this happen.
And the process of actually writing your own movie. So what were kind of the steps? I mean, it sounds daunting, right? I'm going to go make a movie, but how did you tackle it?
I signed up for a class. It was sort of like an extended ed class. Someone had recommended this teacher to me, and I took his class. I kind of cried a lot because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was like, this is a story about a woman who wants to have a baby. It was kind of like, oh, it felt a little like therapy at first, because I wasn't sure like what this story was about. But I started writing these scenes as someone who had just sort of been on the other side of divorce. I was like, I want to see if I can create a piece that feels like divorce, where it's sort of, so I was turning in all these scenes, and the teacher kind of took a liking. He was really wonderful, and invited me to be a part of his writers group. And at first I was sort of like, oh, I'm not really a writer and whatever. And so finally he was like, Finnerty, you have to stop saying that. And he said, it's actually sort of insulting, because you're very talented, and that, like, sort of being humble in that way of like putting yourself down isn't getting you anywhere. And so I was like, oh, all right. And I needed to kind of hear that, because I was like, what am I doing? I'm not, and to this day, I'm not exactly sure what I was doing. I think I was protecting myself in some way, to sort of say I was just dabbling. But he was the one who said, you have us riveted. You're telling us this story out of order. You're turning in these pieces. And I think this is your film, because we are like, wait, what? Wait, did she lose the baby? Wait, was that before that? Or, did he really love her? And oh my God, this scene is heartbreaking. So he's like, and I was like, that's what this feels like to me. But I also was afraid, because I thought, well, I don't really know the rules, and who am I to break rules that I don't understand yet? And he was like, stop it. You're an actor. You know how to tell a story. Forget the rules. They're there if you're stuck, like if you need help, but tell your story. And so I had to just, figure out how to do that without being, being afraid of being called a fraud, or like a hack or something. I don't know. I had to just sort of put that away and say, like, this is my version of it. This is what divorce felt like for me. I really wanted it to be a hopeful movie, but I also wanted it to be very truthful. And I wanted it to be I wanted it to feel intimate, like we were sort of going through it together, but also that she's going to be okay. In the end, I wanted it to feel like that divorce is really awful, and for everybody, whether you're the person who wants it or doesn't want it, but that they're going to be okay. Like, that was sort of the feeling I wanted. And yeah, so that's
No, I love it. And you touched on this. I mean, maybe in some ways, while it was scary, it was also kind of therapeutic, right? So going through your own situation and knowing that you were going to get through this, and I'm sure sharing that story with others watching this. I mean, it's definitely at parts heavy, for sure, but it definitely is one that is. I think I can see a lot of people saying, "Wow, that story just really, really helped me," and also knowing that you had been through this and this was your story, I think is so incredible. And so I believe that more than anything, so many similarities between how you're talking about becoming an actor and how moving into a totally different type of profession in your industry, into writing and learning so much along the way. There's so many similarities. And like I said to you earlier on, I'm not sure that you've ever called yourself an entrepreneur, but your journey for sure is, there's so many similarities along the way. What advice would you give to listeners who are, really feeling like, oh, I've want to be an actor, or I've tried to be an actor and it's just not working, or I've submitted screenplays and nobody wants them? I mean, what is kind of the biggest message that you want people to take away?
I would say just to be, to still follow, if you could follow where the joy is in it. Like I will say, I lost some of the joy a little bit in like years ago, where I was so determined that at one point I went, wait a minute, I had a small part on a really great TV show. It was actually a great little role, and I won't say what it is, but I remember thinking like, yeah, like I was getting ready to enter. And I was like, what is this feeling? I'm like, is this joy? Because I was like, yeah, I'm on the blah, blah, blah show, right? And I was like, is this joy? And I'm like, no, this feels more like, yeah, I get to say I did this show and it's on my resume. And so I was like, let's visit that later, because, I think that's okay too, to do those things. But like, I had to kind of stop for a second and make sure that I wasn't just, because of my generation, sort of like, I won't take no for an answer, and this is what I'm going to do, and then not have other joy come in. So it was scary, because I felt like I took a few steps back in admitting that. But I've since been able to then turn down some things that I was like, no, that won't be joyful for me. But I would say that there is room for you. Like if it really is something you love, there is room. You can insist that there be room for you. Even if you think like, well, I don't really see anything like me, that's even better, because and figure out the ways that you can pep talk yourself too, because I would change the facts sometimes, I don't know if they're facts, but like, instead of going, wow, like instead of saying, they cut me off after my first scene and I had 2 more scenes to audition with and they were done with me, and rolled their eyes, right? Like, you could stick with that and make you feel cruddy for the next couple of weeks. Or you could be like, yeah, I'm one of 32 women in the whole world that had a shot at that, right? So like, and I would just try to tell myself that was the most important thing. And then once I got a little more confident, I would figure out like, okay, when I first leave an audition, there's that feeling of like, that went great. And then it's not till I get home and I'm like, oh, but then he said that, and I probably should have, and I should have, blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm like, whatever that first feeling is of like, yeah, I set out what I wanted to do, I did. Sometimes I'll say, what are 2 things that I did well and 1 thing I could do better next time? Because that's like, I was super prepared. I blah, blah, blah. But next time I should probably blah, blah, blah. And like, see if you can just keep doing that so you can stay in the game.
Learning from your challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. As a producer, I will say, I feel like I have more opinions, like as an actor, just because I've been doing that so much longer. As a producer, this was my first time doing it. So I feel like I have opinions about things, but I'm not sure now what was luck, what was me, what could I have done better or differently. I have a feeling once I do, 2 or 3 under my belt, then you go, oh, wow, I'm good at that. Because consider, or like, oof, I've heard that before. That's probably something I should consider. I do feel like that life is short, and the fact that I am kind of a scared person. I think I was more afraid of not having done it, knowing that I really wanted to do it. So, and I would just say collect the no's also. Like, I never asked anybody for any help in my life. And I had to ask for a lot of help. And I realized that the asking is actually flattering, or that's what I'm telling myself, that you can just say like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I had to take out
ask for help,
to ask for help, and just say, this is what I'm doing. And people can say no. And I think as a producer, I needed money to make the film. And I'm like, I've never asked for anybody in my life. And so I had a friend say, collect the no's. You have to get at least 30 no's for every yes. So when you get a no, just know you're closer. And I'm like, okay. And so one of my first asks, they said yes. And I was like, oh crap, now I'm making this because somebody's writing me a check, and then it was actually happening. But I realized too that even if people ask me like, hey, Finn, if I can't do it, I don't think like, who do they think they are asking me to, you're just like, I'm so sorry, I can't, I'm too busy. Or the asking isn't, I have to admit though, I did have to take out a lot of the language of like, hey, I'm doing this, no biggie, you totally don't have to. Like, there was a lot of the backing out stuff, trying to get
stop apologizing, right? And I can imagine. So, because again, you fear it and you've never done it before, but figuring out how do you actually go out and ask and just do it anyway. As my dad used to say to me, what's the worst that can happen? If you lead with that, I mean, you get a no and that's it. And you just keep moving. And more than anything, and enjoying your life and trying. And so I love your story so much. And I know listeners are going to love it as well. Where can people find you if they want to follow Finnerty? And I'm sure there's a few others things up your sleeve for sure.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm at Finnerty's Photos, and at Twitter, Finnerty Steeves. Our website for the film has sort of all of the stuff on the film. If you're interested in seeing that, it sort of says where it is. And we're going to be, we're going to our final festival next month, which is wonderful. And so that's before, during, after the film.com. And there's all the links and stuff there. Yeah.
So great. So if you love this episode, please give it 5 stars and definitely review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming and listening. And thank you, Finnerty, for giving us your time to talk a little bit more about this industry and this career that you have, this blossoming career, continuing to do new and great things. I love it so much. So we're here every Monday and Wednesday, and please come and say hello to us on my social media is Kara Goldin, all over Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of them. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Have a great week.